yards to go.
Let's talk now about the meat sector. A big drive by Silver Fern Farms. They want to see a kind of a meat company co-op. What do you make of this?
It's an interesting move. It's a bold move to put an advert in the paper and try and get the farmers to create that groundswell. I think the agricultural minister has said a number of times that if things are going to change, it's got to come from the farmers upwards, and maybe Silver Fern are trying to accelerate that process and get that groundswell moving. My personal view, as we said in our agribusiness agenda report we issued in April, is that there is a need for change in the meat sector. We don't think the arrangements are sustainable at the moment. And the way change will happen is it will have to come from the farmers believing there's a better structure for their industry and going about trying to find that structure. So I think it's an interesting step. Obviously, Alliance have reacted pretty negatively to...
Alliance don't like it at all.
No.
I mean, they didn't even know that Silver Fern Farm was going to run the ads. And what kind of cooperative are you going to have if that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting call. It's fair to say that, there probably could have been some communication there, but, there has been so many media reports and about, where the consolidation is going to come from. And I think the letter going out to farmers, it's really, farmers, do you want us to investigate this idea? What do you want us to see us do? So it's really just starting that initial step.
Mm.
Okay, let's go now to the wool industry. They also are talking about a new co-op, and they want $65 million from farmers, basically, to make it happen. Ian, what's your take on it?
It would be interesting to find out if the wool farmers have got $65 million sitting around to invest.
I think they'd be hard-pressed to come up with that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think a cooperative structure, we've said before in some of our commentary that cooperative structures are going to find it very tough to raise capital in the current environment. The interesting issue is, are they going to get 50% on board? This is a very divided industry with a number of different people pulling in different directions with strategies that, while similar, have different focuses. To try and get 50% committed to one strategy, I think is going to be a challenge for those directors. But it's they've got some runs on the board. There is something that says that their idea is working, so maybe they will.
And they're taking it on the road. They're going to have 100 shows around the country. What's the risk if they don't pull it off, James?
Well, we stay status quo. I think if nothing happens, then we stay with what we've got right now, which doesn't seem to be generating a lot for the industry and a lot of returns for farmers. So I guess farmers got to decide whether they're going to get on board or they're happy with where things are at the moment. And I guess we're talking about $65 million, which is a lot of money. Farmers under the prospectus, and they've got to front up with 20 cents for every kilo initially, and then 20 cent payments for the next few years. So the initial upfront payment is minimised, I guess, and there's going to be some benefits out of that consolidation.
I'll tell you one good thing, though, I think the wool industry is doing, and that's pushing to make the souvenirs for the All Blacks to be made out of wool, not terrible nylon stuff and synthetic stuff, apparently. My question is, Ian, what took them to come up with this idea?
You'd have to say it's a pretty obvious idea that there should be a range made out of merino product or whatever. That seems to make sense to me. And, as a firm that's sponsoring the Rugby World Cup, we're very proud sponsors of the Rugby World Cup. We'd be happy to look at having some merino merchandise to use.
Absolutely. Look at what
marketing.
But look at what a worldwide success icebreaker has been around the world. I mean, to me, it seems like 101 marketing, and yet the wool industry is just coming up with this now.
Yeah, well, I suppose some of the issues might be Adidas are the providers of all that product. They've got a global, product range that perhaps uses all of those fibres. They want to promote their product on a global scale to the global marketplace, not just for New Zealand, and take New Zealand into consideration. So that's some of the issues. But of course, it is a smart idea, and it would be fantastic to see New Zealand wools on all that merchandise.
Very quickly, let's talk about Zespri and kiwi fruit, because it looks like they're going to be going for gold. Their forecasts are looking fantastic. James.
Yeah, I mean, well, they've been quite successful at innovating new products and going where consumer trends are going, and identifying where the areas that they want to focus on. And that has been quite a successful story in terms of New Zealand, in terms of agricultural exports. The per tray price for some of their products is looking pretty good. So the outlook for kiwi fruit, it's not looking too bad down the track.
Although interestingly, the organic kiwi fruit is going down. What does that tell us?
Yeah, I mean, I think the organic story is a bit of a mixed one at the moment. Some areas of the global population really want organics, but there's question marks around whether organic is going to be completely sustainable. If the whole world went to organics, then there's just no way that we'd be able to feed all the mouths that are requiring some food.
Coming up after the break, The Hobbit, Hollywood, and government help. John Keyes bailed out investors for South Canterbury Finance. Should he do the same for movie makers? But first, a question for you in our Farmers Facts and Figures quiz. How much in gross revenues for 2008-2009 did overseas funded films shot and produced in New Zealand earn? The riddle is solved when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Money Talks. Just before the break, we asked you, how much in gross revenues for 2008-2009 did overseas funded films shot and produced in New Zealand earn? The answer, $542 million, up 79% from the year before. Well, now we know that The Hobbit is in serious trouble. From an economic point of view, what would it mean for us here, Ian, if it goes away somewhere else?
I think they're talking about spending $650 million, the multiplier effect of that money going through the economy. That would be a big blow, counteracting some of those positives I talked about in relation to the Canterbury earthquake earlier, But the ongoing impact of losing that movie in terms of what's become, as you say, a large part of the New Zealand economy, an important part of the New Zealand economy, would be catastrophic, I think. We need to have as many export industries as we possibly can, and film has turned out over the last 10 years to be a great export industry for us, so we can't afford for it not to be here.
The question is, of course, the government has bailed out South Canterbury Finance, given a lot of money to the rural economy, the rural sector. Why shouldn't they bail out the film industry? Why shouldn't they give them better tax breaks? We're sitting at, 15% now? I know in Ireland they give them 28%. James?
Well, I mean, I guess the key thing is that, we've got potentially 500 million coming into the economy. That's the same as what our wool exports were for over the last couple of years. That's, we export about $550 million worth of wool overseas. So, it's an important sector for the New Zealand economy. It also has flow-on effects for tourism, that sort of thing. So, yeah, exactly. Why not try and promote this as much as possible? And I guess that's why we've seen John Key, become involved in the situation to try and resolve it, because he knows that it is important.
Yeah, if Ireland or Romania or wherever become Middle Earth, everything we've done with the Lord of the Rings, we will lose all that goodwill because everybody will know that New Zealand couldn't follow it through. And we have one of the most valuable brands in the world with that 100% pure New Zealand brand, valued over $13 billion a few years ago. The dent that brand will take and the impact that will have on our tourism industries, our agricultural industries, and just New Zealand in general would be quite significant. The actors, I don't know what they've done. It's ridiculous. They've played with something they really shouldn't have played with.
So you think the government should sit down at that table with the Warner Brothers executives and stump up some more money if that's what it takes? You think it would be a worthwhile investment?
I think when you look, we're investing heavily in the Rugby World Cup as a branding exercise. We invest in the America's Cup. It's just another branding exercise that we need to be on top of, and we need to understand that if it costs us an extra 25, 30 million now to sort out what these idiots have done, that's what we need to do.
Wow, that's interesting. Would you agree with that, James?
I think whatever we can promote to make this happen is going to be good for the economy and good for long term. It's not a short-term solution. We're talking about New Zealand's brand. We've benefited a lot out of the Lord of the Rings over the past 10 years. If we can continue this on, then it's for the next 10 to 20 years.
And think about the rural tourism flowing on. They were actually talking about leaving Hobbiton in Matamata this time, so it could actually be a tourist attraction. That would have created a huge number of people going into a rural area, spending spending money in a rural area, actually really helping the economy on an ongoing basis. That will be lost if they don't film the movie here.
So, Ian, if this is true, if your take on it is true, why wouldn't the government put its hands in our pockets, because ultimately it's you and me that are going to pay for this, and give them what they want to at least get something out of the deal?
I suppose the government is in a very tight position at the moment. We've already talked about them borrowing significant amounts of money every week. But, you know, to lose the revenue that would come off it, all you're doing is really investing the tax revenues that will come off the movie back into the economy. So, to my mind, it's a zero-sum game in a way.
Okay, well, let's talk very quickly about something else. Another investigation by the Serious Fraud Office, the SFO, into South Canterbury Finance. The SFO seems to be investigating just about everybody in the rural sector these days. Ian, you're just back from Australia. What do they make of it?
I think in Australia they've been used to having the investigations. You know, the ASIC are a pretty aggressive investigator of companies when there's been company failure. And in a way, we're probably seeing what has been common around the rest of the world for some time, actually coming into New Zealand, and you know, standards of corporate governance and standards of best practice being enforced on companies, and when they fail to achieve those, people being asked the difficult questions. And I don't have a problem with that. I think it's actually good for the economy, and it will help to give people more confidence in New Zealand.
I know you certainly feel that there is a lot of rural fraud in the rural sector going on. We just haven't picked up on it yet.
Yeah, so we've come out in the past and said we believe there is a reasonable level of small-scale fraud within the rural environment, and we believe there is a risk that will get more significant as we get more groups of farms coming together. However, we do think it is important that that people start thinking about putting controls in place now. And I think the fact that we're finally seeing the SFO becoming a little bit more aggressive is probably a good thing from my perspective.
Okay, well, gentlemen, we know Halloween is almost here. You got your costume sorted? What are you going to go out as?
Do I need to go out as something?
You're going to go out as a rural economist?
Yeah,
okay.
That'll scare a few people.
Okay, Ian, if James shows up at your door, you know who he is.
Yeah,
okay, and what about you?
Well, audit partners are pretty scary to many people. So.
All right, we'll see. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll see you again. Thanks to my guests, ASB rural economist James Shortall and KPMG agribusiness partner Ian Proudfoot. We'd love to hear your feedback, so drop me a line on our website. Remember to check out my weekly blog. We'll give the last word to the little man you're about to meet. With Halloween just around the corner, he brings new meaning to the phrase, trick or treat, smell my feet. He's one actor I figure Peter Jackson should snap up for a starring role in The Hobbit. See what you think. Keep the faith. Happy Halloween. See you next time.